Well, we kind of made it here to the Royal Oak, and this was the home of the doghouse, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but it's just worth kind of mentioning that I put my first gig on in Halifax in like 1983, 84, and as I say, when I was in the student union at college, and I spent quite a lot of time trying to put on various venue gigs and stuff in the 80s before I moved to the Return Club at Northbridge Leisure Centre. And we tried to find different places to put it on because there was always a shortage of venues. And at one point we're in the Royal Oak now, but just half a mile further on is a football ground, and we used the function room of the football ground for but it turned out to be a one-off gig. It was meant to be a whole series of gigs, and we called it the Morning After Club, and we had to go through this long rigmarole process where everyone had to become a member of the what was Halifax Town Sporting Club before they could even then get into the gig. A lot of bother, and we only did one gig there, but it was a gig with the band who I saw on the way down to Glastonbury in 1986, playing Bristol Tropic Club on I think a Thursday night, and called Pot Will Eat Itself, and I kind of spoke to them and got them to come up and play here. Played the football grounds, social room, function room, and then they went on to pretty big things actually, and it was a one-off gig down there, but it was pretty special. And then, but personally, I kind of, after doing lots of things up to about the early 90s, had a fat break, and then decided, I'm not sure why now, looking back, decided I wouldn't mind doing something again. So with a friend called Shaq, who's not around on this film today, but we set up something called the Doghouse, and the idea being that we both loved doing live music. I was kind of promoting side, him on the technical side, and the kind of our agreement, our arrangement was we'd always do it whilst it was no bother, and it wasn't difficult to do, and it was not stressful. We've been going nearly 8 years about, and all those things about being stressful and a lot of bother is kind of gone out the window, because quite often it is. But for the most part, for the early days, this was our base, and it's really strange to see it now, because this room is now actually clean and kind of decorated, and you have to really quite use imagination. It used to be absolutely grubby, unbelievably grubby. Toilets was the most disgusting toilets I think I've ever been in, and the walls were painted black, and we had a small stage here. And the whole pub was like a bit of a death trap really. I remember doing the door on the way in, and somebody dropped half a glass of water or beer or whatever. It knocked the whole lights out in the pub for about an hour because the whole electrics were shut. We're in a terrible state. And downstairs it attracted what could only kind of like people, the kind of real, what do you call them, Freddie? I don't know how to describe them politely, but they were sort of the waifs and strays, and it was like Seamus meets Royston Vasey type characters downstairs. It was really strange, but they never ever came upstairs and never mingled, so it was also okay. And we here for, I think now it was we played for about perhaps 3 or 4 years, putting stuff on here, and this to me was, you know, it was one of the kind of fantastic areas of doing the Doghouse. We had some really busy nights here. Some nights less so, but some busy nights, really busy nights. And probably the one that was, in terms of attendance, was by far the biggest one, was when we booked a band called the Cortinas, and we kind of sold probably about 70 tickets in advance, and the room held probably about 100. And on the night we had about 250 people in here. You could not move, you couldn't get up the stairs. It was absolutely heaving. It was the Cortinas' first time they really ever headlined a gig outside Manchester, and they got absolutely hammered in our backstage room, which was a kitchen just off the side. So we're so nervous, and we were absolutely out of it. We played, and 6 months later they'd kind of taken off, and they're still playing in like Manchester Arena and places like now, but they played for us in this tiny room. From then the Doghouse has moved a few times. We were based at the Old Cock in town, and we're now for the last 2 or so years we've been at Arden Road Social Club, which is a bit out of town. But we've put on some amazing shows continue to do so there and at other venues, including Halifax Minster, which I'll perhaps talk more about later. But this has been a kind of music venue for a long time. It isn't now, unfortunately. The floor is can't sustain much too many people, and certainly not anybody jumping around much they used to do when we had our shows on. But it's a pity because going back to the 60s, it was a folk club, and like Billy Conley, when he was a folk musician, believe it or not, played in here. But now it's no longer going to be used. It can no longer be used as a venue, which is a pity. But I'm joined with my old mate Freddie. Freddie has memories both from the fact that you've been a punter and also as a musician. Freddie, do you want to?
Yeah, there was a period of, I guess, probably a couple of years from about 2007 till 2009 where it seemed like there was sort of at least a gig, if not 2 gigs on here every weekend, Fridays and Saturdays, and it'd be kind of it was this really like lovely community where all the bands pretty much knew each other and all the audience pretty much knew each other, but everyone was kind of like 14, 15, 16, so probably shouldn't really have been here. But like, yeah, I remember the first time I played here was when I was 14, and it was so daunting, but just, yeah, like I said, it was this wonderful community, and it, like, for most of the time you get really, really good crowds here as well. Like you were saying, there was one where there were about 250 people here, but it was so bizarre because they must have still taken barely anything on the bar because no one could get served anyway. So you'd have these gigs where I think, yeah, 200 or 300 people would even be in here, and they'd take like 50 quid all night because just no one was even old enough to have friends with ID, let alone have ID themselves. But
I do remember that because we were quite strict on our kind of 18 over policy, and quite often would get whole gangs of 14-year-old girls and boys turning up kind of with their carrier bag or in the bag with like bottles of Bacardi Breezer trying to get in, and we kind of just couldn't let them because it was too much hassle.
Yeah,
but they obviously came in.
Absolutely. Yeah, there were obviously there was a doghouse, but then there was other promotion companies, like there was Raise the Roof was one, I think.
Sneeze were here.
Stacked. A load that just, put on. It was a lot of really terrible pop punk bands and a lot of really terrible metal bands, to be honest. But there was some really good stuff we had on, like I think Cowtown played one night, which is amazing, and there was some talk at one point of Pulled Apart by Horses playing. I think that happened on a couple of occasions, but ended up getting cancelled last minute both times, which is a real shame.
We were talking a week or so ago about Hair Panda and how Hair Panda who are now Bookworms, which
two of the guys who made it.
At the time of doing this film in 2013, are probably one of the hottest kind of bands that the buzz about at the moment, and 2 of them were in Hair Panda. I remember putting on here in.
They used to play all the time.
Yeah.
They were probably the main source of the 15-year-old girls coming with Bacardi and the handbags. But yeah, no, they were brilliant. They were probably at that time probably the best local bands around Halifax.
They were quite unique.